Hello, today we will learn about excretory system. The, the urinary system consists of two kidneys, two ureters, one urinary bladder and one urethra. Let's know function of urinary system. The kidneys regulate blood volume, read composition, help regulate blood pressure, glucose, synthesize glucose, release erythropoietin, participate in vitamin D synthesis and excrete waste in the urine. The ureters transport urine from the kidneys into the urinary bladder. The urinary bladder stores urine. The urethra discharges urine from the body. Now let's know about structure of the kidneys. The paired kidneys are reddish kidney bean-shaped organs located behind peritoneum on either side of the vertebral column in between last thoracic and third lumbar vertebrae. The right kidney is slightly lower than the left because the liver occupies considerable space on the right side superior to the kidney. Kidneys are retroperitoneal organ, that is, it lies behind peritoneum and lined by peritoneum on its ventral side only. Now come to external anatomy of the kidneys. Three layers, three layers of tissue surround each kidney. The deep layer, the renal capsule, is a smooth, transparent sheet of dense, irregular connective tissue that is continuous with the outer coat of the ureter. It maintains the shape of the kidney. The middle layer, the adipose capsule, is a mass of the fatty tissue surrounding the renal capsule. It also protects the kidney and holds it firmly in place within the abdominal cavity. The superficial layer, the renal fascia, is another thin layer of dense irregular connective tissue that anchors the kidney to the surrounding structures and to the abdominal wall. Now come to internal anatomy of the kidneys. A frontal section through the kidney reveals two distinct regions, a superficial smooth texture called the renal cortex and a deep reddish brown inner region called the renal medulla. The renal medulla consists of cone-shaped renal pyramids. The base of each pyramid faces the renal cortex and its apex called a renal papilla pointed towards the renal hilum. The renal cortex is divided into an outer cortical zone and an inner juxtamedullary zone. Those portions of the renal cortex that extend between the renal pyramids are called renal columns. Together, the renal cortex and renal pyramids of the renal medulla constitutes the parenchyma of the kidney. Within the parenchyma, the functional units of the kidney are called nephrons. The hilum expands into a cavity within the kidney called the renal sinus, which contains part of the renal pelvis, the calyces, and branches of the renal blood vessels and nerves. Now come to supply of the kidney. The kidneys receive 20 to 25% of the resting cardiac output via the right and left renal arteries. Within the kidney, the renal artery divides into several segmental arteries, which divides into a tangled ball-shaped capillary network called the glomerulus. The glomerular capillaries then reunite to form an efferent arteriole that carries blood out of the glomerulus. Glomerular capillaries are unique among capillaries in the body because they are positioned between two arterioles rather than between an arteriole and a venule. The efferent arterioles divide to form the peritubular capillaries. Extending from some efferent arterioles are long loop-shaped capillaries called vasa recta. The peritubular capillaries eventually reunite to form peritubular venules and then interlobular veins. Blood leaves the kidney through the single renal vein that exists at the renal hilum and carries venous blood to the inferior vena cava. Now come to kidney functions. The kidneys are the primary organs of excretion, particularly of nitrogenous waste. The kidneys are also major organs of homeostasis because they regulate the water salt balance and the acid base balance of the blood. Major functions of the kidney includes regulation of the blood ionic composition, regulation of blood pH, regulation of blood volume, regulation of blood pressure, maintenance of blood osmolarity, production of hormones that is calcitriol, the active form of vitamin D and erythropoietin, regulation of blood glucose level, excretion of waste and foreign substances. Now come to nephron. Let's know about nephron. Nephrons are the functional units of the kidneys. Each nephron consists of two parts, a renal corpuscle where blood plasma is filtered and a renal tubule into which the filtered fluid passes. The two components of a renal corpuscle are the glomerulus and the glomerular capsule or Bowman's capsule, a double-walled epithelial cup that surrounds the glomerular capillaries. Blood plasma is filtered in the glomerular capsule and then filtered fluid passes into the renal tubule. The renal tubule consists of a proximal convoluted tubule loop of Henle and distal convoluted tubule. Convoluted means the tubule is tightly coiled rather than straight. The distal convoluted tubules of several nephrons empty into a single collected duct. Collecting ducts then unite and converge into several hundred large papillary ducts which drain into the minor calyces. The collecting ducts and the papillary ducts extend from the renal cortex through the renal medulla to the renal vertebrae. In a nephron, the loop of Henle connects the proximal and distal convoluted tubules. The first part of the loop of Henle dips into the renal medulla, which it is called the descending limb of the loop of Henle. It then makes that hairpin turn and turns to the renal cortex as the ascending limb of the loop of Henle. About 80 to 85% of the nephrons are cortical nephrons. The renal corpuscles lie in the outer portion of the renal cortex and they have short loops of Henle that lie mainly in the cortex and penetrate only into the outer region of the renal medulla. The other 15 to 20% of the nephrons are juxtamedullary nephrons. The renal corpuscles lie deep in the cortex close to the medulla and they have a long loop of Henle. Let's know about overview of renal physiology. To produce urine, nephrons and collecting ducts perform their basic processes: glomerular filtration, tubular reabsorption and tubular secretion. First point is glomerular filtration. In the first step of urine production, water and more solids in the blood plasma move across the wall of glomerular capillaries into the glomerular capsule and then into the renal tubule. Next step is tubular reabsorption. As filtered fluid flows along the renal tubule and through the collecting duct, tubule cells reabsorb about 99% of the filtered water and many useful solutes. Third point is tubular secretion. As fluid flows along the renal tubule and through the collecting duct, the tubule and the duct cells secrete other materials such as waste, drugs, and excess ions into the fluid. Now come to glomerular filtration. Glomerular filtration occurs when whole blood enters the afferent arterioles and glomerulus. Due to glomerular blood pressure, water and small molecule moves from the glomerulus to the inside of the glomerular capsule. This is a filtration process because large molecules and formed elements are unable to pass through the capillary wall. In effect, then, blood in the glomerulus has two portions, the filterable components and the non-filterable components, and on average the daily volume of glomerular filtration in adults is 150 liters in females and 180 liters in males. Anti Let's know about antidiuretic hormone ADH. Antidiuretic hormone, it is vasopressin, released by the posterior lobe of the pituitary organ, plays a role in water reabsorption at the collecting duct. Diuresis means increased amount of urine and antidiuresis means decreased amount of urine. When ADH is present, more water is reabsorbed, that is, blood volume and pressure rise, and a decreased amount of urine results. In practical terms, if an individual does not drink much water on a certain day, the posterior lobe of the pituitary releases ADH, causing more water to be reabsorbed and less urine to form. On the other hand, if an individual drinks a large amount of water and does not perspire much, ADH is not released. In that case, more water is excreted and more urine forms. ADH appears to act by inserting aquaporin to water channels into the luminal membrane, thereby allowing transcellular water reabsorption to occur down an osmotic gradient. Mechanism of action of ADH. Blood-borne ADH binds with its receptor present on the basolateral membrane of a cell in the distal or collecting tubule. This binding activates the CAMP secondary messenger system within the cell. CAMP increases the opposite luminal membrane's permeability to H2O by promoting the insertion of ADH regulated water channels into the membrane. This membrane is impermeable to water in the absence of ADH. Water enters the tubular cell from the tubular lumen through the inserted water channels. Water exits the cell through a different always open water channel permanently positioned at the basolateral border and then enters the blood in this way being reabsorbed. Now come to urine transportation, storage and elimination. From collecting ducts, urine drain through papillary ducts into the minor calyces which join to become major cycles that unite to form the renal pelvis. From the renal pelvis, urine first drains into the ureters and the urinary bladder. Urine is then discharged from the body through the single urethra. Each of the two ureters transports urine from the renal pelvis of the one kidney to the urinary bladder. Peristaltic contractions of the muscular walls of the ureters push urine towards the urinary bladder. The urinary bladder is located in the pelvic cavity. Its function is to store urine before micturition. The micturition reflex discharge urine from the urinary bladder via parasympathetic impulses. Now come to micturition reflex. Micturition reflex. Discharge of urine from the urinary bladder is called micturition. It is also known as urination or voiding. Micturition occurs by a combination of involuntary and voluntary muscle contractions. When the volume of in the urinary bladder exceeds 200 to 400 ml, pressure within the bladder increases considerably and stretch receptors in its wall transmit nerve impulses into the spinal cord. These impulses propagate to the maturation center in sacral spinal cord segment S2 and S3 and trigger a spinal reflex called micturition reflex. In this reflex are parasympathetic impulses from the micturition center propagate to the urinary bladder wall and internal urethral sphincter. The nerve impulses cause contraction of the detrusor muscle and relaxation of internal urethral sphincter muscle. Simultaneously, the micturition center inhibits somatic motor neurons that innervate skeletal muscle in the external urethral sphincter. Upon contraction of the urinary bladder wall and relaxation of the sphincters, urination takes place. Characteristics of normal urine. Color yellow or amber. Color is due to urochrome pigment produced from the breakdown of bile and urobilin from the breakdown of hemoglobin. And odor mildly aromatic but becomes ammonia like upon standing. Urine of diabetics has a fruity odor due to the presence of ketone bodies. pH ranges between 4.6 to 8.0, average 6.0, varies considerably with diet. High protein diets increase acidity, vegetarian diets increase alkalinity. Specific gravity. In urine, it ranges from 1.001 to 1035. The higher concentration of solutes, the higher the specific gravity. Abnormal constituents in urine. Let's know about abnormal constituents in urine. The presence of glucose in the urine is called glucosuria and usually indicates diabetes mellitus. The presence of red blood cells in the urine is called hematuria and generally indicates a pathological condition. High levels of ketone bodies in the urine called ketonuria may indicate diabetes mellitus. Anorexia, starvation, or simply too little carbohydrate in the diet. Let's know about osmoregulation. Osmoregulation is the active regulation of the osmotic pressure of bodily fluid to maintain the homeostasis of the body's water content. Homeostasis of body fluid volume depends in largely on the ability of the kidneys to regulate the rate of water loss in urine. Normally, functioning kidneys produce a large volume of dilute urine when fluid intake is high and a small volume of concentrated urine when fluid intake is low or fluid loss is large. ADS controls whether dilute urine or concentrated urine is formed. In the absence of ADS, urine is very dilute. Formation of dilute urine. When dilute urine is being formed, the osmolarity of the fluid in the tubular lumen increases as it flows down the descending limb of the loop of Henle decreases as it flows up the ascending limb and decreases still more as it flows through the rest of the nephron and collecting ducts. These changes in osmolarity result from many conditions along the path of tubular fluid. First point is because the osmolarity of the interstitial fluid of the renal medulla becomes progressively greater, more and more water is reabsorbed by osmosis as tubular fluid flows along the descending limb toward the tip of the loop. As a result, the fluid remaining in the lumen becomes progressively more concentrated. Second point is cells lining the ascending limb of the loop actively reabsorb sodium, potassium and chloride from the tubular fluid. The loans pass from the tubular fluid into cells of ascending limb then into interstitial fluid and finally some diffuse into the blood inside the vasa recta. Third point is although solutes are being reabsorbed in the thick ascending limb, the water permeability of this portion of the nephron is always quite low, so water cannot move by osmosis. As solutes but not water molecules are leaving the tubular fluid, its osmolarity drops to about 150 MOS milliliter per milliliter. The fluid entering the distal convoluted tubule is thus more dilute than plasma. Fourth point is while the fluid continues flowing along the distal convoluted tubule, additional solutes but only a few water molecules are reabsorbed. The early distal convoluted tubule cells are not very permeable to water and are not regulated by ADH. Fifth point is finally the principal cells of the late distal convoluted tubules and collecting ducts are impermeable to water then when the ADS level is very low. Thus tubular fluid becomes progressively more dilute as it flows onward. By the time the tubular fluid drains into the renal pelvis, its concentration can be as low as 65 to 70 MOS m per liter. This is 4 times more dilute than blood plasma or glomerular filter. Now come to formation of concentrated urine. The three major solutes that contribute to this high osmolarity are sodium chloride and urea. Two main factors contribute to building and maintaining this osmotic gradient: differences in solute and water permeability and reabsorption in different sections of the long loops of Henle and collecting duct and the counter current flow of fluid in neighboring descending and ascending limbs of the loops of Henle. The counter current mechanism is responsible for the generation of an osmotic gradient in the renal medulla. The counter current multiplier mechanism has certain essential feature. Let's know about the features. First is the descending limb of Henle loop is permeable to water, whereas the ascending limb has poor water permeability. Second point is the ascending limb of the nephron is the site for active transport of sodium. Third point is the regulatory influence of the ATH is exerted on the permeability of the distal tubules and collecting ducts. High hormone levels increase water permeability and its abscess reduces it to a low level. From the structure of urinary tubules, it is seen that descending, ascending, and collecting tubule are very close to each other. The flow in the ascending tubule runs counter to that in the descending and collecting tubule. Sodium and other ions are transported out of the filtrate in the proximal tubule, where water also moves out. By the time urine reaches the loop of Henle, about 80% of total filtrate is out of the tubule. The loop of the Henle absorbs lot of sodium and making the urine concentrated or hyperosmolar. Thank you.